Tonight, U.S.-China tensions increase after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's arrival in Taiwan, the highest-ranking American official in 25 years to visit the self-ruled island that Beijing claims as its own.
With House Speaker Nancy Pelosi meeting with Taiwan's president overnight, China is accusing the U.S. of playing with fire.
China is already retaliating against Speaker Pelosi's visit. They're going to have military drills. They've got warplanes circling Taiwan. What is your plan for de-escalation, and should we be concerned?
I would just say that it is important that the United States be seen to and actually is compliant with our policy and consistent in that policy.
Why did Nancy Pelosi go to Taiwan? Was there even a reason? I'm Yasmin Khan with Rebel HQ, and the relationship between Taiwan and China has been compared to, say, Russia's relationship with Ukraine, or even the United States' relationship with Puerto Rico. They're not perfect comparisons, but generally speaking, they refer to a global superpower declaring authority over a smaller nation or state that functions more or less as a sovereign entity. Taiwan is an interesting study, though. For one, the island is called Taiwan, but officially its government is the Republic of China, or the ROC. To give you a very brief history of events, there was some conflict back in the day between two different parties in China. The communists under Mao Zedong were successful in overtaking the government, so the opposition party fled to Taiwan. That created a strange situation where the official government of China was now sequestered to a swampy island off the coast, while the very large mainland was being governed by the communists. Under the communists, China became the People's Republic of China, or the PRC, though it wasn't initially recognized as legitimate by most of the globe. Today, there's something called the One China policy, which recognizes that the PRC is the true government of China. The U.S. supports this policy, which includes acknowledging that the PRC claims that Taiwan is part of China. So in other words, the U.S. doesn't necessarily agree or disagree with the PRC's claim, but it acknowledges that a claim has been made. People have been keeping an eye on the relationship between China and Taiwan for some time, a situation that many believe could escalate to involve the rest of the world. However, ever since Putin invaded Ukraine, the threat has come to feel a bit more imminent. The concern is that China will feel emboldened by Putin's efforts to follow suit, especially at a time when much of the world's attention and resources are being funneled to Ukraine.
From the moment she touched down in her military jet, Pelosi receiving a big reception from the welcome sign written in English to crowds along the way as she met with members of parliament.
We come in friendship.
China reacted with fury, announcing more live-fire exercises, flying fighter jets up to what Taiwan considers its airspace, and according to Taiwan, hitting their president's office with a cyber attack. That's because China views Taiwan as its territory, and President Xi Jinping is trying to cement his control with a third term this fall. Only last week, warning President Biden in a marathon call that on Taiwan, those who play with fire will perish from it.
The Biden administration, for its part, is attempting to strike a delicate balance between acknowledging the One China policy while also supporting Taiwan's right to govern itself as a democracy. Nancy Pelosi has said as much herself in an op-ed that she wrote for the Washington Post explaining why she was going to Taiwan. Specifically, she said, quote, "Our congressional delegation's visit should be seen as an unequivocal statement that America stands with Taiwan, our democratic partner, as it defends itself and its freedom." Unfortunately, the op-ed didn't say much more than that as far as what this trip hoped to actually accomplish and why she chose this moment to go. Many critics from across the aisle worry that Pelosi's visit undermines the administration's efforts to shore up support with Asian nations, which even included President Biden inviting Japan and South Korea to a NATO meeting in light of Putin's invasion for the first time. There's also the fact that China told the U.S. just prior to this visit that U.S. politicians who attempt to play political games with Taiwan will, quote, "come to no good end." Some say Pelosi went because of this threat in an effort to show, in a somewhat diplomatic way, that the U.S. wouldn't be bullied by China. But others suggest that the fact that the White House even cares about China's response to this visit is indicative of China's leveling up on the world stage. As far as China's response, China did some military exercises around Taiwan while Pelosi was there, which included setting up what could almost be considered a maritime blockade with ships surrounding the island. It looked an awful lot like something the Chinese government could replicate if they, for instance, wanted to disrupt the supply chain and block aid from reaching the island if they, for instance, wanted to invade the island. However, there is a political and economic aspect to this as well. President Xi Jinping is up for re-election, and while it seems likely that he will get re-elected to an unprecedented third term, he's probably looking to reinforce his image as a strongman against the declining West. That's on the heels of incredible COVID lockdowns that drew intense public scrutiny from the Chinese people as well as from the international community. The president is also probably wary of economic repercussions against China should China invade Taiwan, similar to what Russia has been dealing with since the invasion of Ukraine. The question then becomes, what is the extent of U.S. support for Taiwan? Should China invade Taiwan to finally sweep it under its communist umbrella, will the U.S. intervene? And if so, will that intervention just mean financial and diplomatic support or full military support? Now, obviously, the latter isn't ideal, but as the world is already suffering from the economic fallout of Putin's invasion, I'd imagine that public support for Taiwanese support could be a little hard to come by these days. Still, since when does the government care what its constituents actually want? But all of that aside, and this is important, we haven't even talked about Taiwan this whole time, or more specifically, the Taiwanese people. This situation, like so many similar situations around the world, sees imperial powers deciding the fates of entire nations of people. It's like Taiwan is caught between two divorced parents, but unlike the child in that scenario, Taiwan just can't declare its independence once it turns 18. These superpowers play politics with people's lives, operating based on agreements that are often decades, if not centuries old, agreements that, again, were made by foreign imperial powers, not by the people who would be subjected to live under them. The superpowers operate with entitlement to not just land, but to people, and it's up to a different superpower to decide if they'll allow the first superpower to do what it feels like doing. Now, that's obviously an oversimplification, but there are examples of this literally all around the world. Just to give you a quick example, the people of Hong Kong are dealing with a similar situation in which they're being held to an agreement that was made over 100 years ago between Britain and China, in which it was decided that Hong Kong would be able to more or less govern itself for some time until China got to have it. Naturally, an entire generation of people has passed since that agreement was made, and the people who have grown up in a self-governing democracy are now not interested in being governed by China. Another similar situation could be what we're seeing in Afghanistan right now, where women who grew up with dreams and goals of their own had them dashed overnight when the US changed its policy. So with that, we'll have to see if China responds to Pelosi's visit beyond some military exercises, or if they'll hold true to their threat of no good end, whatever that even means. That's it for me. Like and subscribe if you got something out of this, and be sure to follow me over on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks for being here.